Hi, everybody. So, this is my response video to the negativity in the community surrounding the show. I typically don't put out more than one video in a day if I'm doing anything regarding content, and this one is going to be just like all my other ones, very unscripted. And I want to put out my thoughts regarding the overall negativity of the community. So I have a little story and I'm going to make this real quick. I'm trying to keep myself at a 10-minute timer. So let's just go for it. So one of the things that I really want to bring up when it comes to anybody being negative that is from the community, I really genuinely need to make this very clear to everyone. More people paying attention to the content that we have grown to love means more media for the content that we've grown to love. End of story. I was in Seattle this past weekend. It's the furthest trip I've ever taken from my home, and I went to Emerald City Comic Con. While I was perusing everything, I went around the artist alleys, and I looked at artists who had done beautiful black and gray portraits of fantasy characters. And I asked every single one of these artists that had a very interesting art style, something I would like on my wall, something I'd like to put on my wall. I said, do you have any plans for the Wheel of Time show? Anything at all? I mean, you have to think about it. It's the #1 stream show in the world right now. Do you have any plans for it? And everyone's reaction was, well, honestly, the community is split. Honestly, I think that a lot of people don't like the Wheel of Time show. So I'm here to put out a PSA to anybody that is screaming about adaptation not being pure to the books. Please realize the consequences of what you're doing. I went to a convention and found one piece of Wheel of Time related media, and it was a book with it was a page from the book with a stamped in Wheel of Time symbol, the old logo. That's it. That's all anybody had. Not a single person at an entire convention that people are paying hundreds of dollars to walk into for the entire weekend, to walk through artist alleys and vendor halls. Nobody had anything related to Wheel of Time. Now, we understand that there is stuff related to getting official merchandise and things like that, and we know that's going to come from Sony and Amazon. But compromising the creativity of fan artists and people that have the capability to make things that we can then go to cons and purchase, we're stifling that. Because people that are being pure to the books, oh, Loyal doesn't have wiggly ears. Well, maybe he does. We just haven't seen it under his hair. But his performance is amazing. Anybody screaming about the books not being perfectly adapted, you can't adapt television or movies to be one-to-one recreations. And people that are screaming about, oh, well, they did it in Harry Potter. No, they didn't. They completely omitted sections of Harry Potter. But the people that watched the movies appreciate the movies. There's entire scenes. One of my favorite scenes from the books in Harry Potter is when they're going through all the trials to get down to the Sorcerer's Stone, to get to the mirror. And they cut out like 3 of the trials. Or 2 of them. I can't even remember, because I've seen the movie more than I've read the book. And people that scream, oh, well, what about Lord of the Rings? Tom Bombadil's not there. And guess what? I grew up with no Tom Bombadil. I didn't know Tom Bombadil was a character because I've never read the books. It doesn't mean that I don't appreciate Lord of the Rings. It doesn't mean that I don't appreciate the lore and the story and the characters that have been driven into my head as these fantastic individuals with a great amount of backstory and history behind them. And I look into Lord of the Rings lore and I just am awestruck by how huge the world is. But the thing is that we love Wheel of Time. And anybody that is going to shout and be angry and gaslight and be pissed off about Robert Jordan's legacy and other things, understand a lot of those quotes, they're there. But the reality is that Robert Jordan did not see a future for Wheel of Time in media outside of a book. It's just reality. But the thing is, you also have to factor in that you're talking about the 90s and the early 2000s. We're in the 2020s. We have technology beyond anything capable. And we have Harriet involved. We have Sanderson involved. We have Sarah Nakamura involved. We have people like Rafe that are devout fans of the books in charge of this show. And anybody that wants to complain about the overall capability of Amazon and Sony's ability to push a narrative from the Wheel of Time, and that they just have some corporate agenda, some woke nonsense. And you know what? Wheel of Time was progressive in the 90s. Anybody wants to complain, Wheel of Time was woke in the 90s. We just didn't have a word for it yet. So anyone upset about how the Wheel of Time is portrayed currently, realize that all Sony and Amazon had to do was not care. They could have taken the world and just shoved it out there and said, there you go. And we could have another Shannara, or we could have another Winter Dragon. And to whoever's commenting on the videos saying stuff like Winter Dragon and stuff like that, I understand you don't feed trolls, and I'm not trying to feed a troll. I'm not trying to, do anything. I want to have a discussion. Meet me on my Twitch stream. Talk to me. We can talk. And we can discuss like we would at JordanCon or at any of these conventions where we can talk about it. People are free to have their opinions. People are free to be upset about stuff. But don't gaslight a community and get pissed off at the world for accepting something that is not what you view as your standard. The problem is that if we stifle this level of creativity, then we're compromising what we may want. Because here's the thing, that same artist that was drawing these beautiful black and gray portraits, he didn't have Henry Cavill as Geralt. He had Geralt from the video game. But here's the thing, if the show's successful, then we may get a video game. And maybe we'll get a video game in the vein of The Witcher 3 or whatever. And maybe we'll get some cool board games or card games, things that I like. Maybe that stuff will come to fruition, but the show has to be successful. And for a show of this scale, with this budget being shoved behind it by Amazon, the fact is none of these artists were aware that the budget was over 9 figures for this show. All of them were just assuming, because everybody on the fan base on Facebook and everybody is screaming about their disappointments and this and that, and I had to tell them very cleanly, I am a huge fan of these books and I have loved every episode of this show. And I had to tell them very, very, straightforward, understand the person complaining is the loudest one in the room. It doesn't matter. If it's one person upset, it draws a crowd and gets people's attention, because that's the same thing that news agencies follow. It's the same thing that people do, politicians, everything else. Everybody just dwells on one negative, and the more that they can dwell on that negative, the worse it is for everybody. And I hate to say it, but be a tinker. That's going to be the title of this video for anybody that is being upset. Just adopt the way of the leaf. Because violence and anger does not solve a thing. You are permitted to be upset about something, but don't scream it to everybody online and make the people outside of our little community think that the fans hate something. Because you know what? Some people like the Star Wars prequels, but people that like the first season, the first set of 3, they don't like the Star Wars prequels. People hate the Star Wars trilogy that happened in the last few years. But kids love it. I see kids running around that con, picking up the Kylo Ren lightsaber from Ultra Sabers, spending hundreds of dollars to get a prop from a show that was clearly just trash and bad rewrites. Just be a tinker. Let people have their joy. Don't just antagonize and cause more of a stir because you want to get noticed or you want to be upset. If anybody is interested in my content, this is not normal for me. This is not something that I do every day. But please be a tinker. Stop being so negative. and just embrace what we're allowed to have, that we live in a time period where we are allowed to have this. To have a show with millions and millions of dollars put behind it, with actors that are committed to roles, and with people that genuinely care behind the helm, and not the next person just looking for a paycheck. I'm sorry for being so upset in this video, but please, just adopt the way of the leaf this time. If you ever see something upsetting, just let it be, because it's not worth the anger. Thank you very much for your time, and I'll have my review up for episode 6 tomorrow. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.